This movie is really powerful. It's one of those film experiences that very few film experiences I've had in my life where just by the end of it, I feel like so many memories from my own life have come up. And I haven't been in the military, but there's like certain emotions that surface, pains that I've had in high school that come up, and I'm sort of forced to think about them again and reevaluate them. But this movie kind of gives me a different perspective of them, and I'm curious that through all this, are you okay?
I've luckily had a year and a half to to decompress, but I'm glad that it was effective in bringing up things for you, because I think this film is important. The importance of this film is for us to interrogate these kind of structures that make people feel small.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's been some comparisons to Full Metal Jacket. It's in the trailer, which I think is absolutely fair. But then there's movies like Tigerland that come up as well. What I was thinking about when watching this, there's a certain coldness to it. It's haunting, it's beautiful, it's all these different things. And Kubrick once said that however vast the darkness, you have to supply your own light. And I'm curious for you when you're going through this, and it's difficult to watch you go through some of the things that you do in this. How do you supply your own light in this?
I think for me, the truth of the matter is Nicholas supplied that light. He's this really gentle, soft-spoken, quiet, person, but he's got this underlying strength that just is undeniable. And I kind of really had an admiration for the character and his strength to continue and still search for himself despite all of the damage that he experiences.
You brought up something earlier that made me think about um, how when I watch movies, I tend to be a very guarded person. I keep a lot of my emotions in, and everything tends to come out when I watch movies. I guess this is why I do what I do, and probably why you do what you do. Um, but what has been your relationship with cinema? That are you the same way when you watch something that some things come out? You have to have a conversation with your friends. You have to share it with somebody, because that's what this movie is propelling me to do. I want to share it with friends, and I want to have conversations about it.
Isn't it wonderful that stories have the ability to transport people and change their opinions?
Yeah.
I think that's what's always fascinated me about storytelling. It seemed to me the most effective way to make change, because we as human beings try to relate. When we try to relate to one another, we tell each other stories about ourselves, that hopefully that person will have an understanding, more of an understanding of us and our context. And for me, film and on a larger scale, storytelling has always been that. And I've always kind of been able to see myself in films and reflect on that.
Yeah, yeah. What sort of conversations were you having with your fellow co-stars in between takes, because it's so heavy?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't get with this role, I didn't get a lot of time to kind of converse. I was quite busy most of the time, and I created a sonic soundscape for my character, like a playlist. And so between scenes, it was mostly me putting in my headphones and kind of gearing myself up for the next tape, a next take. But when I did have a chance to chat to my fellow co-stars, it was generally keeping it very light and
Yeah,
fun and laughing a lot. And there was a real camaraderie around the whole group of actors.
yeah. Would you say that that playfulness kind of came out? Because I've watched some featurettes on this film, and some of your co-stars have said that you have in the script they have the big moments, but then there's those in between moments where you get to kind of be a little more playful.
Yeah.
Did would you say that some of that energy went into creating those authentic moments?
It was so interesting, as Oliver told me, by the end of the film, we didn't have we didn't have a bleeper take. There was no kind of like, hold on, I forgot my line, or oh no, you didn't say the right line. everyone was really immersed in the story, and we were given the ability to play around with the narrative and the scenes. And so we were really privileged, and definitely that sense of playfulness came into the film.
Because the movie is so emotional, as we've been discussing, I know that you also shot this out of order. And how do you maintain that emotional through line through the entirety of this film, where it goes in so many different directions that it can be kind of like I mentioned earlier, like playful, but then there's another quickly following that could be something quite horrifying. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious, like how you get into that. I guess you were saying that you stay focused by putting your earbuds in and trying to just maintain focus, but is there anything else to
Yeah, so whenever I look at a script, and specifically, well, not specifically, also a film script, is I kind of break it down into the different movements and different feelings or tones during the filming process or the storytelling and my through line. And then sonically, I help myself by breaking down those movements into different playlists, and I put myself in that space by the music giving me the right kind of tone that I felt for that scene, or what I wanted for that scene. But then also, we're incredibly privileged by the fact that this process was so immersive, and as far as the art direction and everything else, it felt very real. So it really became a process of kind of letting go and submerging into the reality that was being created for us.
Mhm. Can I ask what kind of music you listen to versus like the kind
Yeah,
of music that we get in this that's may be
yeah.
entirely different from what you were listening to?
I mean, so Oliver and I broke down kind of the music that Nicholas listened to, and it was Bob Dylan and Fleetwood Mac and different areas. But then for me, an artist who's kind of always in my playlist is Bjork.
Mm.
She's someone who I find music, her songs are so different that I can kind of use them in different contexts. And she was incredibly helpful for me as well.
Was there a particular moment in the script or scene that felt like that was the launching point for you in the discovery of this character?
Um, I think for me, the flashback scene was something that was really interesting, being the fact that it's the only scene that I'm not in. Because
Yeah.
Oliver and I had a lot of conversations about whether this was kind of like a repressed memory, how conscious he was of it, but it kind of for me ignited the formation of the character.
Yeah. That was I mean, based off of some of the things that we get with your character early on, I felt that there was something that was going to be revealed to us. And when it comes, that is one of those very moments that I was talking about earlier when we started that remind me of certain pains that I've had in my past. It just was really a powerful scene. And so I had to at
Mm,
least mention that. But
yeah, it's a
um,
beautiful scene.
yeah. Um, what's really cool about the way that Oliver shoots this is like he really captures this sort of like disorienting experience. There's sometimes where he shoots it on sticks, and then there's sometimes where it's handheld. But then there'll be like corners, like the way that he frames it, like it'll be parts of your face. Some things will be in focus, some things won't be in focus. What surprised you the most in the way that he captured these poetic moments about life that are not just in the script?
What's interesting is like when I walked onto set, I wanted to be as unconscious about the film. Your job as an actor is to kind of forget about the
Right.
camera and everything else, going on around you. And Oliver's really good at creating that environment and that safe space for actors. But then the first time I never watch playback. It's not something I'm kind of like interested in watching. But when I watched the film for the first time in Venice, I was kind of mind blown by the film, not because of me or because of my performance, but just the kind of integrity and artistic integrity in which both Oliver Hermanus and Jamie were able to capture this film.
I know you mentioned you didn't want to think so much about some of the technical stuff that Oliver was doing. That your focus is to be there in the moment and what the character's thinking. But do you have to behave differently or move differently when Oliver is shooting in this 1:37:1 aspect ratio? Is the
There
blocking
was
different or anything
nothing.
like that?
Yeah, no. Oliver is amazing about just kind of the whole filmic process needs to work around what the actors provide. And so, I just kind of did what I felt was truthful in the moment, and I wasn't really concerned about what was being captured, or there were no marks on set or anything like that. So it was quite a privilege. And then obviously, when you're shooting things like TV, it's a different medium, and so you have to kind of switch your brain. But it was a real privilege to work with a filmmaker and act as a true actor's director.
The reason why I go to the movies is or watch movies is the how it changes me. Like I like to go in and
Mm,
I care so deeply about human growth, like how I am as a
mm,
father, how I am
mm,
as a husband, and I
mm,
watch movies like this and I pick up so many things and I apply them some way in my life, maybe even subconsciously. How has this film done that for you? That, as you said, it's been a year and a half. You've had a lot of time to digest a lot of what's been going on. How has it
mm.
changed your life?
I think for me, the greatest change was kind of an understanding of my father and his generation, a greater understanding of it, and the kind of the trauma that he had been through. And so for me, since filming, it's really aided and helped my relationship with my dad. Because I think, as human beings, like I was saying earlier, I think the only way we can really move forward is through understanding. Um, and that's what's always intrigued me about being an actor is by inhabiting another person, I'm always able, at the end of it, to be able to understand myself a little better.
Makes my question